So you can have the posterior primary division. You have C1 is going to be a suboccipital nerve. So suboccipital means basically that's going to be under the occiput. Okay, so this is starting into the cervical plexus. And then you have an anterior primary division, which is the first 4 cervical nerves, and that's going to form the cervical plexus. So the cervical plexus is going to be deep under the SCM. It's not going to be as significant. The brachial plexus is going to be more significant than the cervical, but we'll go and cover it just the same. So it's basically, again, it's going to be the ventral rami of the first 4 cervical nerves. So it's going to be this part here. So this just shows all the things that are going to be supplied by the cervical plexus. We'll go through these different nerves. So it's going to supply some of the muscles in the neck. So you can have a cutaneous branch, which obviously is going to be superficial. And that's going to be the lesser occipital. That's going to be mostly from C2, so it's going to cover the posterior aspect of the neck and the scalp. So back up in this area here. Because you remember, if you do, well, I don't know if you haven't really gone over dermatomes that much, but basically dermatomes are like stripes along the body where at each level that's going to descend down. So C1 is going to be the highest, and then all the way down to S1 will be the lowest. So it kind of goes around the body. And then you can have the greater auricular nerve, which is going to be C2 and C3, so that's going to cover the ear and the skin over the parotid gland and the mastoid, so down in this area here. So we're kind of starting to work our way down. So C2, I mean the lesser occipital is up in this area here. And then you have transverse cutaneous. And then actually this part here should be under there. So it's transverse cutaneous branch. That's going to be, again, it's going to come from C2 and C3, and it's going to be the anterior and lateral aspect of the neck. And then supraclavicular, so now we're starting to work our way down. So supraclavicular, again, is going to mean above the clavicle. So that's going to start working down into this area here, C3, C4. And then other deeper branches. So first we were talking about superficial that innervates the sensory to the skin. Now we're talking about motor branches, which are going to be the deeper ones. And then you have this loop, which is the ansa cervicalis. So it's going to have different branches that come off of it. So it's going to be coming off of C1, C2, and C3. So then there's going to be nerves that go to the infrahyoid muscles. If you remember, you have the hyoid going right here. So muscles up above it are suprahyoid, and then you have the infrahyoid, which is below the hyoid. So those are basically going to go into the muscles here that have to do with raising and depressing the hyoid bone. And then you can have other branches that are going to go to the deep muscles of the neck. So now we're going a little bit farther down into C1 and C5. So it's going to go into the scalenes, the levator scap, and the traps and the SCM. So the superficial branches go more to the sensory of the skin. The deeper branches are going to go to muscles of the neck. Then you can have the phrenic nerve, which is going to go down into the diaphragm. I think I'm going to mention this before. So when you have people that have neck injuries where it's high up above C3, 4 area, then you're going to have to be on a respirator because they're not going to be able to breathe as well. Okay, so again, here this kind of shows you where some of these nerves are. The accessory nerve, that's going to be a cranial nerve. But this is going to innervate some of the muscles of the neck. So this cervical plexus also is going to feed into the 11th cranial nerve, or the spinal accessory nerve. So that's going to innervate the SCM in the trap. So it comes off of the cervical plexus, but it's also considered a cranial nerve. And then also another cranial nerve that's going to contribute to is the hypoglossal, or the 12th cranial nerve. And that has to do with functions of the tongue. And we'll get more into that when we talk about cranial nerves. So that's also going to contribute to motor portions of the infrahyoid and glenohyoid muscles, and also the tongue. Now, this is the way that it was in the notes where it said lesser occipital nerve is commonly indicated, involved in cervicogenic. But I did some research, and it's not, because like I always heard of also the greater occipital nerve. And then also they also talk about the trigeminal nerve has to do with cervicogenic headaches. So basically, like I said, different sources will say different things. Maybe I can pull up the article that I was reading about, but just keep in mind that there's different nerves that can contribute to what we call cervicogenic headaches. So what that means is a pain in the head that's coming from the neck. Right? There's a lot of things, problems in the neck can contribute to headaches. I hear of like tension headaches, but also you have nerves that innervate the facet joints in the neck, and then the trigeminal nerve. Some of that is linked up with some of the suboccipital nerves. So basically there's a lot of different things, these nerves on the back of the neck, back of the head and neck that contribute to cervicogenic headaches. Right?
So how should we rephrase that?
There's a combination of nerves that can generate cervicogenic headaches. It can be the lesser occipital nerve, greater occipital nerve, and the trigeminal nerve. But those typically are going to be headaches that may start in the occipital area, and then they can come around like this. What is that, gallbladder? So different lesions that can affect the cervical plexus are going to be meningitis, and then tumors that are high up on the cord, because we're talking about C1 through 4, maybe C5. And then any kind of fractures that are going to affect the cervical spine or dislocations. And then some type of deep penetrating wound, a knife wound, stab wound, gunshot. And then surgery on the neck. Because basically we're talking about the upper part of the neck, so anything that's going to affect that area can cause lesions to the cervical plexus. You don't really see too many disc herniations that are up high in the cervical spine. Usually they're maybe C4, 5, 6, 7.
I have 3 in the upper cervical spine.
Disc herniations?
1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
It doesn't happen as common, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't ever happen. Okay, so now we get into the brachial plexus. So again, it starts out as nerve roots. And then you have divisions, and then you have cords. So basically, like I said, it starts out as nerve roots, individual nerves coming out of the spinal cord. So those are numbered, C1, 2, 3. Actually, in this case, it's going to be C4 maybe, but C5, C6, C7, C8, and T1 are usually the main things that are considered part of the brachial plexus. So first you have roots, then you have trunks, and then you have divisions and cords. And it's not, we're not going to get into so much of that, but then understand at the other end, then you have peripheral nerves, which are named nerves. Okay?